Hey, Friday afternoon, the weekend before Thanksgiving. Pretty exciting time for everybody. I can't believe the year's flying by as much as it is. To whoever's here, thanks for joining us. And so I wanted to introduce Daniel Wellner. Danny works with me over here at Averity, but I'll give Danny an opportunity to introduce himself. And so everyone who doesn't know you, what is your name, rank, serial number, and what do you do?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for having me. My name's Daniel, last name Wellner. I've been at Averity for around 9 years now, which is kind of crazy to say. Started out in the DevOps SRE world, kind of moved into the platform security, I would say, over the last 4 to 5 years pretty heavily. Just kind of been doing a lot of connecting, always loved tech my whole life, all the way through, high school to college. I took a lot of programming classes. Really found a solid interest in it. And, ever since I've joined, I've just kind of loved this environment we've been working in.
How did where did the love of tech come from? I mean, because I was a secret kind of geek myself, kind of pre high school and high school, trying to learn how to hack into computers and all that kind of stuff. For you kind of the
Yeah,
same.
so I wasn't on that side. My side was my junior year in high school, my first computer science class. We had actually a really good teacher and convinced me to take the class and, saw my interest in, technology as a whole. And we actually did game design was a big portion of the actual class. I think my final project, I don't know if I still have it back in my, my home in Indiana, but it was to design a putt-putt game in C++.
Yeah.
So I think that was my entry point into technology as a whole, and from then on, I loved it. Took some comp sci classes, like style classes in college as well. Never really dedicated it to a major. Didn't think I was that driven to it, I guess. But you could always say I had an interest in it. Like I was the fourth, fifth grader that was teaching my family how to use computers back in the day. How to work things on the old internet and AOL and Comcast and all of those lovely providers. But yeah, just, always kind of taken an interest into it. And that kind of drove me into where I'm at today.
What? So obviously, when you interviewed with us and we hired you, you didn't. I can't remember, to be honest with you, because it has been almost 10 years or something like that. DevOps wasn't really around. It wasn't really a thing, or was it beginning to be a thing, or
So DevOps, I think, was initially like put into action probably in, I think they came up with the idea of it, like you build it, you run it back in like 2009, 2010. Don't quote me on that. I think that's the accuracy behind it, but it really was at a pivotal time of every company was implementing it, right? Around the time I joined, that like 2017, 2018. Obviously the larger scale companies probably started a little bit earlier, right? With like sysadmins doing some of this work, but not really actually building like dedicated DevOps teams, right? So I think the real initial boom was probably 2017. And then from 2018, 2019, I'd say up until 2023, it was a massive, massive boom, right? Going from like just move as fast as possible, deploy as fast as possible. And then, they started implementing things like microservices, which made sense for like high scale companies that are, running a lot of different products, but didn't really make sense for the smaller companies, incorporated a lot of cost, didn't really make sense for a lot of aspects, but companies still wanted to kind of move to the latest and greatest. So I would say it was a pretty large boom in that kind of like systems DevOps side of the house.
so it's definitely. I mean, you've seen it go from what DevOps to SREs to. I mean, I remember back in the day was you were, Unix admin.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I always like separate DevOps and SRE. I'd say platform is more like the DevOps 2.0 of the world right now.
Yeah.
SRE was like Google's brainchild back in like 2017, 2018. The whole goal was like observability, reliability, scalability, which obviously makes sense, right? Because your product needs to be reliable and it needs to be scalable. Otherwise, you don't really have a sound product, right? Yeah, I would say DevOps and SRE sit separately, and then they obviously have a lot of symbiosis, but I'd say platform is like DevOps 2.0.
Okay. What is a? How do you define, like, what exactly is a platform engineer? What is platform engineering?
Yeah, so the way I define platform engineering, it's from an ideological standpoint, it's self-service, right? So whereas like DevOps engineers are building the actual software and also doing the operations behind it, platform is more like self-service, right? They're a platform team builds the infrastructure, they build the internal tools, the pipelines, and the whole goal is to let engineers actually build and ship faster and safer, right? Versus like a developer doing their own operations, you got to think they're not spending 100% of the time actually building, right? They have a lot of work on the back end doing the operations side of it. So, average engineers automate tasks, great engineers design products, in my opinion. So platform engineering to me is a product of the company.
What skills? We love our buzzwords. But seriously speaking though, like what skills does a platform engineer need? Like what's the non-negotiables or the must-haves we like to call it in our.
Right. I mean, strong cloud fundamentals, strong automation, observability literacy. Right now, I think, going back to the product, the ability to think like a product owner, obviously with like AI assisted development and how fast things are moving, like really having an understanding on how to secure and build these platforms for AI workloads these days, right? A lot of people are vibe coding and using AI to help deploy things faster. Platform is basically building the ground of the infrastructure for developers to, you know, reduce deploy times, right? Like take something from 45 minutes, I could deploy in 5 now, right? So the whole goal is that, that's why I kind of call it DevOps 2.0, because DevOps was kind of ingrained to move faster, to deploy these products faster. But in my opinion, platform has that same kind of like iteration of DevOps, but it's more like, let's build the platform. Let's make it easier for developers to come in and build this product without having to understand Terraform modules or configuration management or all of these other things that can kind of cloud your mind when you're programming, and really focus on the core development of the product you're building.
What's the supply and demand skew look like for.
I mean, I would say similar to what DevOps was back in like 2019, right? Like everybody wanted an engineer who, knew containerization, right? Docker and Kubernetes, although Kubernetes was very new, right? A lot of companies didn't run it in production. So there was that twist of, okay, a lot of these people don't have it, but they can learn it, right? And platform engineering is sort of that same thing, right? Like you're taking DevOps engineers or SREs who have that understanding of software, fundamentals, and they can implement it into building these tools to drive development. So, your whole goal as a platform engineer is to make developers happy, make their lives easier, and help them deploy faster without having to deal with all the operations type stuff.
What's the demand for it out there right now?
It's big. Yeah, I would say
Yeah.
it's big. Like, in my opinion, companies are kind of throwing platform teams in now, but as far as I'm concerned, if you're a new company, like you should implement a platform team right off the rip. Like it should be something ingrained in the core build out of your company.
So what are so CTOs, VPs of engineering, the hiring managers that are out there finding these people? I mean, where do you find them? I mean, is that an official title yet? Have
Yeah.
people started moving into that role?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely an official title. You can even get more granular. If you're looking for a basic platform engineer that's on the infrastructure side, you could do that. You could look for data platform engineers, who build data platforms from the ground up so they can help like self-service data across the org more efficiently, more cleanly. So yeah, there's the title is definitely there. I don't think it's in the amount of abundance it will be in the next 5 to 10 years. Like I said, I think platform engineering title is the new DevOps, right? What DevOps was 5 years ago. Not saying like DevOps is done or anything, like because the core ideology of DevOps will always be there. But I think platform is just like taking that and evolving it a bit.
So you, you know what I want to jump into some of the stuff that you talk, obviously, because platforms, a lot of it's around AI, right? You talk about vibe coding, you talked about, they're our new favorite buzzword. Things like I think I've seen this. I've been doing for this too damn long. That you keep seeing buzzwords, and as long as you keep saying those buzzwords as often as possible, people think you know what you're talking about. So I remember when it was like DevOps, for example, and if you just said like Kubernetes, and everyone's like, "We need Kubernetes." Like, you don't even know what Kubernetes is. Like, yeah, but we need it. Let's do it. I was like, data was that thing. I remember when data was coming out in like 15 or 16, it was, as long as you said big data a bunch of times and machine learning algorithm, everyone stopped what they're doing. They had to listen to you. So now we got platform engineering. So now we've got obviously AI,
Uh-huh.
but wrapped into AI, and I know a big specialty of yours is security.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole different discussion. I know obviously on our end, we live in the middle of supply and demand, right? We know what people need. We know what people want to do. And we understand everything that kind of happens in the middle of all that. But where are you seeing right now tied into AI, a term AI governance, if you will, maybe keeping a human in the loop, things like that right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a loaded topic, right? You can talk about this for hours. Yeah, AI governance is big. How has AI changed the entirety of like attack surfaces, right? Like you have prompt injections, you have like model poisoning, data leakage. Like there's a million different things that can happen. And if you look at cybersecurity, like cybercrime, I think the numbers I saw last was, I think 10.5 trillion was their projected yearly cost, right? So if you put that in like GDP terms of like an economy, it's third in the world. It's behind America and China, only those two. That's how big cybercrime is globally. And I don't think people take a serious enough look at it. Like cybercrime affects everybody. It affects us. It affects teenagers who are just now getting on the internet, right? Not really understanding. Like they're probably a little more savvy than like your older baby boomer generation who's really getting hit by it. Deep fakes, phishing inject, like tons of different ways that we could talk about cybercrime. And I don't think it's slowing down. I think the evolution of AI, like especially with people being able to like jailbreak prompts and kind of have AI almost help you write malware and help you, maybe you know AI well enough and how to train LLMs, you could design bots to actually work these angles for you. So you can train bots to do your malware attacks, which is terrifying, right? Because you could deploy 100 different bots, you could deploy phishing bots, you could deploy malware bots, you could do all these different angles with cybercrime. And I think understanding that, from person to person is more important, right? Like everyone who touches a computer or a phone who has access to the internet for that matter needs to understand cybercrime, right? And understand how many avenues or ways you could be affected by it. It's insane. If you go to an airport and you connect your computer to an airport Wi-Fi, public Wi-Fi without using a VPN, you're at risk, right? So just little things like that some people don't think about, or clicking on an email that you think is from Microsoft, but it's really not. Like, we saw one this morning that came through our website. Like it's a daily event, right? So people need to understand that every day we're trying to be attacked, some way or another. People are doing it for financial gain. People are doing it for fun. Some people are doing it just to try to break the system because let's face it, like it's just the way it is.
So I know I have my kind of my druthers against this, but why aren't people like, it cracks me up because you hear something like this, but in my opinion, that should be, no, I'm not in media, but I think that should be like the front page thing that everyone should be talking about. Right.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, so why, like, why not? Like, why isn't, we talk to CISOs all day long. We talk to all these people, but why isn't everybody, really like looking at this being like, we're about to unload, the right technology in the wrong hands is not good.
No. And yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I actually was listening to a TED talk where a guy was comparing AI to like a knife, right? Like it's neither good nor bad, right? Like you can use a knife to chop up your salad or you can use a knife to hurt somebody. Same with AI, right? You can use AI for good. You could use it for ways that benefit the world, and you can also use it for ways that are bad, right? Like it's not inherently one or the other. And obviously you have a lot of people that are using it for good. And on the flip side of that, just sheer data, right? You're going to have people on the other side of that. And I think like, bringing it back to my last point, like when you think about security, it's like, yeah, companies really need to have it on the forefront, but we need to be talking about everybody about this, not just people who are in technology. Like everyone across the world needs to understand trigger points and ways people can penetrate your, defenses or passwords or whatever you want to call it. But I think it needs to be a global effort. I don't think you can solve any one problem by a company implementing, certain technologies to block AI, right? Like it needs to be a total effort, right, to be able to do this, which the faster and smarter AI gets, it's going to make that much more complicated, right? So that's a great question. I don't know why cybersecurity is not talked about more and more almost every day, right? Because everyone's being affected by it at some point.
This is boring.
It
It's not
can be.
exciting. No one wants to talk about how much we love the police, but everyone wants to talk. It's the theory, like everyone really likes the thought of the Wild West, right?
Yeah.
Right, like, oh yeah, it's the Wild West. I remember crypto back in the day. Oh, it's the Wild West. Everything's the Wild West.
Yeah.
But like the Wild West involved like cowboys literally robbing, stealing, shooting, murdering.
Yeah. You're
But like,
not
yeah,
wrong.
so that's fun and exciting apparently for some people.
Yeah.
But versus the marshals and the deputies were not, because they were the killjoys.
Right.
So again, that's my opinion on it, but what do you, so from a demand standpoint right now, I mean, I've talked to some of the best security people I've known for a long time. And I think, I don't know, probably you also. It's like, I see I think some amazing people that are on the market right now. So I know this is a kind of a personal opinion type of question, but what do you think, or is there going to be a trigger point, or is it going to be, does it need to be a trigger point for society to understand sugar cubes and fairy dust? We need security,
Yeah.
like, or something. I mean, do we have to wait for something dramatic to happen, or, or
You
can
know,
we get smarter?
the problem is humans always err on the side of, I guess I shouldn't say always, but a lot of the times burying their head in the sand, right? What I don't know doesn't hurt me, but like I don't really want to spend my time learning about how to protect myself or these sort of things. I think people really need to feel the impact of it to change. Unless you're really interested in security and cybersecurity as a whole, then you already have an initiative to do so, right? But if you're not big into tech and, I don't want to put all these multi-factor authentications into my sign-ons or, it's just too complicated to do this. It's like, yeah, that's great. Like you don't want to waste time to do that. Like that's your choice. But at the end of the day, like you will be affected by this at some point in time, right? Like whether you know it or not, whether your data is leaked off of Uber or, just using them for reference, not saying, or any other company, right, for that matter, where data leaks happen. It's happened tons of times and will continue to happen. So I think it's about how much you want to be protected. I guess some people don't care and some people really do care. So I think like I said, it needs to be a holistic collective effort on everybody to be like, all right, we care, like stop stealing our stuff.
Yeah. Listen, the amount of fraud that I find on our business credit card on an annual basis is hysterical. People are like, what's with the $76.99 subscription? I'm like, I have no idea. So I know I've gotten, I'm on my third card this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little annoying after a while. And the amount of
Yeah,
emails that are hysterical, like approve this invoice. Here's your reconciliation. Here's I get DocuSigns from, like, you've got to be kidding me with this stuff.
it
So
happens. It happens all over the place. Phone scammers, computer scammers. You have people who will send, like in the real estate industry, I know landlords who have been seeing massive attacks of people emailing their tenants saying that we've changed the invoicing instructions for rent. Please wire money to this, and you're talking a lot of money. Big buildings, 50, 75K rent out the door as fast, and there's no way to retrieve it, right? Like you can file a police report, but that only goes so far. So I think really understanding the fine print and just your threat surface, right? It's a term that a lot of people in security use, like understanding your threat surface to be attacked, I think is very important.
I know I was talking to a buddy of mine, CTO, who said just the simple things like having the special character in your passwords, two-factor authentications, are huge. So let's talk about the recruiting side of it now, because obviously we are in a place of spam and automation and emails from everywhere. I mean, I actually get emails according to the email is from myself, from Chris Allaire to Chris Allaire. I'm like, wow.
Is this me from the
What's
future?
really going to freak me out one day is if I call and I answer.
There you go.
Go ahead. Now it's officially over.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in recruiting relationships, I mean, just give me how critical are they? I mean, what's the tax in this stuff right now?
The utmost is what they matter. I mean, trust is the differentiator in anything in this world, right? Like in a world with so much information, right? Like you could ask ChatGPT a question, and if it's not trained in that certain aspect, it could hallucinate and spit out a wrong answer, but it's going to answer it like it's correct, right? And like the human, intuition is like, okay, believe this, it's a very smart piece of technology, so it has to be right, but that's not always the case, right? So same thing for recruitment. Like trust is so important that if a engineer actually trusts you and can break things down with you, I think that's the most important thing, right? Because they'll tell you the truth. And you can kind of help them, guide them through the process, help them, see if this is actually a job that's going to advance their career and where they want to be, right? It's almost like a partner in a sense, right? When it comes to job searching. So yeah, I think trust and relationships especially are the most important thing right now.
Yeah. Because so I've been doing this for almost 30 years. And one of the things I'd say is I remind people is that the way we communicate today on a day-to-day basis is really honestly like the only thing that has changed. You still get to interview for a job, right? You still have to get the job. You still have to make sure that that's a job that you want. Then you need to negotiate a salary. Then you need to accept. You need to give notice. Then you need to start. And then there's an onboarding process. And there's all these things that have happened from that job search time. And nobody wants to go through these things. I mean, there's some people who want to go through these things, but interviewing, scheduling, feedback, having a third party to kind of run this stuff over with that's tough. You don't just find a house on Zillow and go, yeah, I'm buying it. Right. You still got to walk through the house. You got to look at it, and then you got to get an inspection, and then you got to get a radon test, and you're right. So all these things have to happen, and all this stuff involves relationships with people. So, I've seen it more and more is that these, the way we initiate and communicate is different, but at the end of the day, it's trust, it's relationships, it's knowing that someone's got your back, it's knowing that you got my best intentions. You're not just trying to jam something down my throat so you can get out of the call as quickly as possible. Have you heard stories about bots interviewing? Well, I guess bots interviewing bots nowadays.
Yeah.
But we had hit fake candidates for just a second. How's your experience with a fake candidate? Have you had any so far? Many?
Yeah. Yeah. I've had my fair share of them, not gonna lie. Some are, you know, advanced and some are extremely low level. The extremely low level ones are kind of laughable. They just kind of read, the resume as best as they can. I've had some definitely very advanced ones who seem like vetted engineers that are deep faking, maybe possibly being someone else, maybe not in the country, trying to take advantage of the US remote job market right now. I mean, there's a multitude of ideologies that could happen, right? Like I read that there was just a operation that busted 5 people that were tied to like kind of, I guess, embezzling money back to North Korea to fund who knows what, right? So it's all over the place. And obviously, like you have to look at the US and their salary bases, right? Like if you're making 200K, but you're living in New York City, that's different. But if you're making 200 American and you live in, a country that has a very low COL, that's a big difference, right? So I think there's a massive uptick in that. I'm running into fake candidates at least a few times a week, if not on the daily, that I see them, whether they're applying, reaching out directly. And there's a lot of ways to vet these candidates. You have to do some deep diving on LinkedIn. You have to look at verifications. When was this profile started? Are they connected to people that actually work at the company? Because you'll find people that say they work at Facebook, but they're not connected to anyone at Facebook. They'll say they went to a prestigious college like Carnegie Mellon, all of this stuff, but no verifications with their college email address. So a lot of red flags you can detect. Like I could go on for a while, but it's wild that as a recruiter now, you almost have to do like a forensic background check on these people just to make sure they're real. Because what I've seen is if you think something is too good to be true in this day and age, it probably is. Yeah.
So I know so I've talked to my fair share of them also. Pretty funny because I think that's the nice thing where experience can't be either you have it or you don't.
Right.
That's just wisdom. Because once you've interviewed, how many people have you interviewed? Thousands upon thousands of candidates, right? And you can tell something's up.
Exactly. Almost within the first minute or two.
Yeah, you hear something, you're like,
there have been a couple that almost got through that I really had to do another deep dive on and be like, no, red flag, red flag, red flag. But they talk tech very well, and not from like I'm reading buzzwords level, but you could ask them an offbeat question off of certain technologies regarding the job you're working, and they will dig into certain things they've done. So you could tell some of these people are real engineers or like have real core engineering backgrounds, and they can chat about this stuff. So, it's to bring your reference back, it's the Wild West in a way.
This was is I know on our end, the way we operate, obviously as a Averity, being highly specialized, right? How does that give you a leg up? How does it give you the advantage?
Especially when finding or vetting fake candidates, I can start to suss that out by asking core, engineering questions that you should know, right? Some recruiters will recruit buzzwords. There's a lot of good recruiters in the space that'll actually talk tech and deep dive into whether it's a platform role or DevOps or and really go granular with it, right? Like if you're just saying, hey, how much Python have you used? Like you're not really going to get a deep dive answer. But if you ask a more granular question, you're going to get a more granular answer. And that's where you start to suss people out, right? And that works for real and fake candidates.
Yeah. So I know that's then the strength is like, because the other thing is this is what I like is when you specialize is, you know, I'm not going to say 90%, but you're in like 75 to 80% of what's going on out there. So you see who's doing what they're doing, how they're doing it. So if they're working at a company and you've been in the market for 10 years in New York City, in the DevOps space, in security, you know people and you know what these companies are doing. And I've seen it before where someone's like, send me a resume. I'm like, they don't run PHP at, and if they do, they're not working on your core trading platform.
Right. Yeah.
No, this is not, no. And then I'm like, so what were you building with PHP? And then you just tell someone's reading, I'm like, yeah, you have no idea what you're talking about.
I know.
So yeah. So I always think if you were going to advise, people that are hiring, people that are recruiting out, and especially in this world, kind of what type of advice would you want to give somebody?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I mean, obviously you can't go off resumes anymore, right? Because resumes are pretty heavily written by AI these days, and they will cater them to job descriptions. So everybody looks like the perfect candidate in a certain, world. But I think for recruiters, obviously hiring managers and people who are on the engineering side, they're probably a little better just picking up the phone, having a few questions and really digging in right off the bat to see if this person actually knows what they're talking about. And for the recruiter side, I would say, if you're not super familiar with an industry you're recruiting in, just read up on it. Like, do as much educating yourself as possible to know the questions to ask and, what answers you should be given to understand if this person's competent at this technology, all right? Just because it's on the resume doesn't mean they actually know it or do it. It's sad to say these days, but you really need to train yourself to figure out, are these people capable of doing this job?
Yeah. So I know that's one of the things like over experience, you can kind of hear it,
Yeah.
and you're going to get, I mean, you don't know everything, but
No, no.
you know a lot. So what do you think? So what excites you most about the future of tech right now? DevOps, security, platform engineering, what's exciting about all this stuff?
So I think if I had to pick one, I think the most interesting would be like the AI security piece, right? Like, how can we use AI in the security world to combat the attacks from the other side, the AI side of, malware and maliciousness? I think that's the coolest thing I always have been reading up on lately for the last like few months. I'm just kind of trying to understand like what they're doing and why they're doing it and what mindset you have as to why you would do that a certain way. I think that's probably my favorite. The platform side is very interesting as well because it's like I said, I always loved the infrastructure side of things, right? Like deploy fast, make sure things, you're the guy in the background that makes sure the website doesn't break, right? Like, we've seen a lot of outages recently with AWS and Azure and Cloudflare and CrowdStrike and, the list goes on and on and on. Some affect more than others, right? But yeah, I think the platform side is also very interesting just because, you're enabling developers to develop, right? And it's just like a new ideology and iteration of DevOps and, how do we go faster, stronger, and more reliable?
Nice, man. Well, listen, again, I think for people that are out there in recruiting or looking to recruit or looking for talent, especially like where we're in New York, that's a tough landscape. It's I think the partnership is critical. So I think, so thanks Danny for popping in here and give us some expertise on what to look for. How do people find you?
LinkedIn, email. I'm very active on LinkedIn. Obviously, I'm a recruiter, so if you ping me on there, I get back very quickly. I'm normally on there like 10 to 12 hours a day. So I know
An
my
hour a
core.
minute.
Yeah, when I'm not doing the family stuff, I'm typically, at least logged in. So easy way to connect with me is there.
All right. Well, Danny, thanks so much. Hope the Colts finish strong
Me
for
too.
for your Colts.
Yeah, appreciate that.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining up. We will. So Danny, again, hold on a couple of minutes, and we'll look forward to another visit with us soon. Take care, man. We'll
Sounds
see you
good.
later.
Thank you.